This old house is made possible by a grant from Owens Corning Fiberglass, makers of pink fiberglass insulation, fiberglass ceiling panels, bathing fixtures, and other Owens Corning building products that put houses in the pink.
Hi, I'm Bob Vila. Welcome to this old house. We've got a lot to talk about today. We haven't been here in a week, so we'll be getting a progress report from the homeowners. Norm and I are going to spend most of the show today building some cabinets. And we'll also have a visit from an interior decorator who helps Debbie pick wall surfaces and floor finishes. But I think the most interesting thing we could do right now is meet with Ben and Debbie and see what kind of a week they had.
I hope that you'll be pleasantly surprised with the amount of work that's gone on since you were last here, Bob.
Sure, I will be. Hi, Debbie.
Hi, Bob. How are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Okay.
What are you doing on this concrete wall here?
Well, we're trying to treat it cosmetically. It's not an outside wall.
That's right. Your garage is on the other side of this.
We don't have to worry about insulation, but we do want to clean it up. We can't stud it out because I'll lose too much of our stair room. So I found some of this mortar mix. I have to fill in some of these voids in the wall.
The big holes in it, yeah.
And just to smooth them over a little bit. And then I found this product that I wanted your opinion on. It's a very thick textured paint.
It's ceiling texture.
Yes, and it just gives a nice finish to the wall.
It's a good idea.
It's washable, and it seemed to have a, fill in the small holes and everything, and I was wondering what you thought of the
It's
product.
not going to crumble or anything. You've done this,
No, it
it's
won't.
already dry.
Yes.
I think it's a good idea because you won't be building out, and you'll have a nice bright look there on the only wall that is
And
really
relatively inexpensive also.
Yeah, exactly. Why haven't you done any further work on all the ceilings over here?
Well, we've had to make a decision. We need some help with it. If you can see from here, we're going to be having a headroom problem coming down the stairs. So I think the suspended ceiling can't be put here, and now we're trying to figure out what to put here.
Okay. Yeah, in this section, from this beam over to where you
Over to
are,
here.
you've got to conserve the headroom.
That's
so
right.
I would think that you'd want to just put wallboard right up there, strap across and put up some wallboard.
Yeah.
And then the old laundry chute, take some tin snips and cut it so that it's flush with the ceiling, and then you can just build a little trap door there that plops down against the wall, and you can bring your cart
in,
That sounds
catch
good.
all the laundry that way. That'll work nicely.
This is pretty nice.
This is great.
Is that
You've
the
got
doors? These
a
are
nice 6-paneled pine door in place.
pre-hung.
Very good.
Really simple to put up. And this separates the utility part of the basement from this part. And it's nice and wide.
Isn't it terrific?
Yeah.
Just a couple of weeks ago, the whole basement looked like that,
That's right.
and now we're
making progress.
making a lot of progress.
Right.
It's nice that you got a full width.
We were very lucky.
Now you've started cutting your beadboard for your
Yes, we have.
wainscoting, and I really like the job you've been doing on this drywall installation. I can hardly tell where the seams are.
Well,
are you planning to wallpaper this wall, or?
Well, we are. We have a decorator friend of mine coming over to discuss wallpaper later on.
Oh, super.
So she
What have
will
you got
help us
here?
out.
Intercom. We installed this going to the second floor, and again going up to be one going to the kitchen. It's a necessity.
Yeah, absolutely.
But now is the time to do it when the walls are open.
Well,
a lot
good
easier.
for you. Good for you. Oh, this looks super. Hey, I thought you had the mason lined up to come and chop out some of these bricks and
We
give
have,
you a little archway
but
here.
unfortunately he is still busy, so we're still waiting. He has promised us.
It looks good. I'm really pleased with how much work you've done on the wainscoting and all this beadboard. What's the treatment going to be?
It's going to be stained,
Good.
a light stain.
Good. That'll be nice because you'll see the grain.
We don't
and
want
the
to cover
knot
it with the
yeah,
paint.
Exactly.
No, not at all.
And you've been taking part of the ceiling back down.
Yes, we have.
The
So
plumber's
allow the
been
plumbers to work.
super.
All the new heating pipes.
That was a good idea, you know.
I think it was
a little bit of
wise,
extra money, but you've
Yep.
gotten rid of those old cast iron pipes that were there that would have been a real headache hanging down
Well
below
worth
the
it, gives us
ceiling
the extra
line.
headroom.
And you've got all your junk in here, but this is coming along nicely.
All the drywalling is done in here. We've started with the suspended ceiling.
You're still planning on using this as a wet bar and
There's a wet
little
bar
work
and a
area.
little desk area there.
That'll be nice.
Right.
You've got another door
Yes,
up
we have.
to the powder room. You got a lot of work left to do in there.
A lot of work to do in there.
Well, I'm sure you'll get on it. Now, what about back there, where we've been talking about a closet at one point, storage
Well,
closet?
remember, we
that you
had
wanted to
planned on
build?
putting a closet here for storage, and
Yeah.
on second thought, we don't think we want it. We want to go with the base counter cabinet system and a wall system with shelves.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
Balance.
'Cause
We're going to
it'll-
balance both sides.
Yeah, it'll be nice to have the same kind of element on both sides of this big expanse of brick. And this is going to primarily be your entertainment
center
area.
We plan on a sofa here, and over in this area here we want to put some type of reclining chair so we can view over here, TV, and still have that end of the room open for playing
That'll be very nice. This will have to be a little bit different to accommodate room for the TV section. I hear the saws going. Norm's already up in the garage, isn't he?
Yes.
Well, I think I'll go join him, see how he's doing, and I'd love to talk with the decorator when she comes.
Fine, we're going to start on our painting.
Okay. Hey, Norm, it's great to have a dry garage to set up shop in.
It sure is. We need a little room to make these cabinets.
How are we coming along?
Well, let me show you what I'm building here. These are the cabinets that Ben and Debbie wanted, and what they have is on the upper portion, open shelf cabinets with adjustable shelves, and on the lower portion, just a countertop with a series of doors. Behind the upper cabinets, we're going to put beadboard so that it ties it in with
The wainscoting
on the sidewall. Now, we made a little extra provision on this side in that we jutted out the counter and left a little extra height on the center of this cabinet so that TV can fit in there.
Excellent, but we won't do that on the right side of the fireplace.
No, we'll run it straight across over there.
Okay. What's the story with all this sugar pine I see behind you over there?
Well, it may look like sugar pine, but in fact, all these strips of wood have been cut from plywood.
Excellent. Pine plywood.
These
then.
4x8 sheets, yeah, this is pine plywood, and it's about 2/3 the price of clear pine.
It's less money,
So
for
it's
sure.
less money.
The other advantage is that when you use regular clear pine 1x12s, it'll do that on you. It'll cup.
That's right.
And with plywood, you've got a good stable
Nice and
material.
stable, right.
So how far along are you? Are you working on this top unit?
I'm working on the top unit, and I'm just making some of the grooves here. I've machined almost all the pieces, and to make the grooves and some of the rabbets that I need, rabbet cuts, I used a dado head, which is just a series of blades.
Right.
And let me show you, I have one more groove to make.
Okay. Yeah, that's an invaluable,
there is to it.
invaluable tool to have on your table saw.
And let me show you over here. We're almost ready to put this one together in a dry run.
Want to do a test fit?
Sure. Now this is the top, and I've put 2 dados in here to accept these side panels.
Let's do a dry run then.
Okay. And those just slip in like that. Now here's the dado to accept this shelf, which is going to be above the TV. Okay, just slide that in. Now on the end, what I did is put a rabbet, which is just like a shiplap cut, on the top and the bottom, so that when we put these together, we'll get a nice tight joint there, and it'll be, you know, good and strong. So that goes like that.
And then this will all be glued and fastened when we're down there with it, right?
That's right. Now
And
on
then
the
over
other
on
end,
this end, the same configuration.
now one thing I'll show you is before we try that, these grooves that I made are for these adjustable shelf standards.
Oh, these could
They're
just
going to
be...
go in like this, but I want to wait until after they've stained the cabinets before I put them in.
Yeah, very often these will just be surface mounted right on the plywood, but this is a lot more elegant solution.
Right,
for
this
it.
makes a much nicer job.
And then this
Then
one
that piece
there.
goes there, and then that should fit right on the top there. Okay.
Nice and square and true. Okay, Norm. Why don't we get started on the bottom unit then?
Okay, we'll go down to the basement. I'll show you the base cabinet.
Okay.
Well, Bob, down here, I'm going to build the base cabinet right in place.
Why not just build it up in the garage and bring it down here?
Well, because we're between a couple walls here. We have this wall, and we've got this masonry wall, which is kind of imperfect and uneven. And the chances of me building a cabinet and being able to get it down here and slide right in there perfectly are pretty slim.
Yeah.
So it's easier for me to fit all the pieces between these 2 walls.
And it's also going to be a big, heavy unit, so
That's
that I'd rather avoid having to carry it down.
Okay. Now,
What do we have back here?
okay, the first thing that we have here is our frame for the toe kick, which would be the first thing we would set in place.
So this is really the base
That's the base.
of the unit, just made out of 2x4s.
It's 2x4s, and I've added a piece of strapping because this space here would be a toe space. And by the time we put the face frame on, if I don't raise it up enough, you won't even be able to slide your foot underneath it.
Gotcha.
So this extra 3/4 of an inch is important.
Okay. Now we know we have a level subfloor here, so you shouldn't have to worry too much
Well,
about
I think we should give it one final check before we nail it down. Okay, when it gets nailed down tight, we're going to be fine. Yeah, let's just check it to the end. it's not too bad. It's just off, just a hair, but I think we're okay when you get that down tight.
All right, so let's nail it.
All right, and nail it up with some coated nails, and all I'm going to do is toe the frame into the floor. I have a line here that I want to be on.
Okay, Norm. Now with the base well secured to the subfloor, what's the next step?
And the next step is some glue. Before we set the plywood down for the base, I want to glue it down to the frame.
Okay. I'll
Another
start at
one.
this end.
Every time, whenever you build cabinets, I like to glue everything. Every single piece that we put together, we glue, so that they never fall apart. Just use a good quality carpenter's glue, yellow glue or a white glue. Okay.
Okay.
All right, now let's bring our base around. You can slip your end in first. Okay, I just want to check one thing here. Right on that red line. Check your end, see if you're on that red line.
Perfect.
Good. All right, now I'm going to nail it down with some finish nails. Okay.
Good. They're all nailed and set. What's
Set.
next?
Okay, the next thing to do is we've got to put a frame up here for the countertop, and that's this line right here. And the frame is all built.
Okay, let me get the other end.
That height of this counter is the same as our wainscoting, which is about, I think you're going to have to lift your end first, Bob. Okay, pull it down. Already marked my studs, and I'm just going to spike that. Okay, Bob.
Oh, that ought to hold too, TV.
That'll hold it.
All right.
Now, I've got the top. I cut it. Let's just put it up there and see if it fits. I don't want to fasten it right now, because I want to build the face frame first. I want to make sure it fits okay.
You've even got it scribed over here. That's very nice.
Okay,
Beautiful.
that looks good.
All right, so you're not going to nail this down.
No, but let me show you a couple of details that we're going to do to this. All along our wainscoting, we're going to put a chair rail like this, a little cap, and then underneath it, we're going to take a piece of this casing stock and do that.
That'll be beautiful.
Okay, now we're going to carry this piece all the way around and actually use this as an edge for our counter. We'll glue that on there.
And we'll have the molding underneath.
That's right, the molding will be underneath it.
That'll be a nice
Okay.
detail. Okay, well, what's next then?
So the next thing to do is that we have to go back up to the garage and take some pine and mill up some stock to build this face frame.
Excellent. Let's go do it.
Okay.
Hey, what's going on? We're getting a shower.
Yeah, they predicted a few for today.
Well, you'd hardly notice down in that nice dry family room. Now, what type of pine are you planning to use?
Well, Bob, I put a couple pieces out here. This is #2 pine,
Yeah.
which is relatively inexpensive,
It's the cheap
65,
stuff, yeah.
70 cents a foot. But, you know, it's got knots in it, and it would be kind of hard to use for a cabinet. It's really meant to be used for exterior trim where it gets painted and or stained.
yeah.
But what we're going to use is D-Select pine, which is about 3 times the cost of this, but it's really meant for cabinets.
It's called D-Select.
That's right. And what that means is that it has some knots, but they're very tight and they're very small.
No, it's beautiful stock.
Now
But
we
this
buy
is
it.
about $2 a foot, isn't
That's
it?
right. And I buy it in 1x12, 12-inch widths. And the reason for that is because I could go down and get several pieces, you
Yeah.
know, the different sizes we might need.
Commonly, you can buy 1x2 or 1x4 or 1x6, whatever.
That's right. But bringing that back, you know, all those pieces and all those edges, they're bound to get nicked and dinged, and then you have a hard time making a good cabinet. This way, I've got one board with only 4 edges, and I can rip out of it anything I want.
Okay.
Also, the cabinet, sometimes we might need a piece that's a little bit bigger or smaller than the standard width. This way I can get any size I want from a 1/4 inch to about 11 1/4 inches.
Okay, so you've got more freedom with
the wider
buying
material.
a 1x12.
Right.
What about the table saw itself?
Okay, there's 2 things that are very important about the table saw. One is this rip fence and the blade. First of all, the rip fence, it's important that it's a heavy steel fence, that it has a mechanism to tighten it both on this rail and on this rail, so that it stays perfectly straight and parallel
To the blade.
with the blade.
Yeah.
If
And
it's
what
not
about
parallel to the blade, you have a very difficult time ripping straight pieces.
What about the table itself?
The table itself is also important because it's heavy cast steel, finely machined, so that it won't warp or distort over time. This saw is real old and it's still perfectly good.
Okay, and what type of blade are you using?
Okay, the blade is a carbide tip blade. It's a 60-tooth blade, which means it has 60 teeth all the way around the diameter. They're little pieces of carbide which are welded to the main blade itself.
They're like an actual little chisel there.
Right, very hard steel, and they stay sharp for a long time.
But they cost a lot. I mean, how much do you pay for a blade like
That's
that?
right. A blade like this is about $50. But, you know, it stays sharper than a regular blade, and you can have it resharpened.
So in the long run, it makes more sense to have a good blade like this,
That's
right?
right. That's right.
Okay. Any tips on how you set your fence before you rip?
We have to rip some strips about 1.5 inches, so why don't I set up for those first? Always set up and measure off the fence to the
Rather
blade.
than relying on any
That's
of the
right.
of the numbers that you get back
that
here.
are on here, right?
Yeah.
Because we just
You're
ignore
strong
those.
there, but
By 1/8 inch, and I'll show you why I'm doing that in a second. I'm going to rip all my pieces about 1/8 inch wider than what I really want as a finished product. Oh, Bob, even with that nice fine blade, you can see it's still a little bit rough. And what I want to do is I want to have the surface to be as smooth as this, because this edge is going to show as part of the cabinet.
so
So I'm going to use this tool. And what this is a joiner.
why
And
not just take a hand plane to it?
Well, I could, but, you know, labor is expensive and time is important. And with this tool, I can do it much faster, and I can actually do a better job.
Right.
And how this tool works is similar to the saw. You have a heavy bed, a nice heavy fence, and you have a cast wheel with blades. There's 1, 2, 3 blades set in there.
3 cutting blades, yeah.
They turn at relatively high speed and shave off part of the wood to give us a nice smooth surface.
It's a dangerous tool, though.
Very dangerous. Always make sure this guard is on, because you don't want to slip. You got to keep the wood tight against the fence and tight to the table, and you don't want to stick your fingers in there.
Yeah,
by
let's run it
accident.
through.
Okay. And see what it does? It takes off about 1/16 inch, giving us a nice smooth surface and eliminating this rough surface. Let me finish running that through.
Beautiful. Now, what about all your cross cuts, Norm?
Well, Bob, we'll take the pieces that we rip and bring them down right to the cabinet location, and in that case, we'll use a power miter box to cut all our pieces to length.
All right.
To the proper length.
Boy, Norm, this is really coming out beautiful. The face frame looks excellent, and look at that nice tight joint there.
Okay, would you like to try a hand at it?
Sure.
Over here, you can, this piece is missing the bottom rail. Why don't you put that in?
Let me get it over here.
Grab that piece of stock we made up in the garage.
Now, when you're building cabinets, you rarely use a measuring tape,
That's right.
You're
You
just
always hold it and mark it.
fitting and marking.
But before you do that, let's not, you don't know for sure if this edge is nice and square because this came right from upstairs. You should take it up to the miter box and cut it so that we're starting with the square edge to hold
So we'll
against the
just
style.
trim about a ½ inch off of it.
That's right.
Now, the power miter box is a tool that's really become almost universal with most contractors.
That's right. It's only come out in the last 6 or 7 years, but now everybody's using them.
But you can count on getting a good square cut with it. And it's got a break on it.
Okay, now when you bring this back to the cabinet, make sure that this face is the side that's going to show. Because you can see that's a nice clean cut.
Yeah.
But on the back side, because of the blade rotation, it chips a little bit.
Right.
Okay, so always keep the face.
So this is our outside face.
That's right, smooth edge up.
Okay. Have you got a fine point on your pencil?
Okay, I got a nice.
Now, which is the best way to take a mark? By fitting it in, like, into the corner like that?
No, because you're at an angle. Tip it up on the side.
Yeah.
And just enough to catch it. And put a very small mark there. Not too big because, especially with stain, we don't want to have to sand those pencil marks out.
Okay.
Okay, now you can take it up and cut that end.
Keeping, again, the right face up.
That's right. And just leave that mark, because you can always trim it again, but if you cut it too short. Okay, let's give it a try. That's okay. If it's a little snug, just tip it in there. Okay, that's what we want. We want it snug so that joint fits good.
Yeah,
okay, that fits good.
That'll be fine, but I think we better put some glue on it.
That's right. We glue everything when we build cabinets. Why don't you just run some glue down the back of that? Okay, and put a little bit on each end here so that the joints will be glued. Good. Now, you know, when you build cabinets, really, the thing that holds them together is the glue. But while the glue sets, we have to hold it in place. So what I'll do is just use some small finish nails and nail it in to hold it.
And I'll take a damp rag, which is another thing you want to have when you're working with glue.
Right, especially if you're going to stain it later. You want to wipe all that glue off. And just set the nails in a little, and we can come back later and fill those holes in the finishing process.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Bob, on this wall cabinet, I'm putting some adhesive, panel adhesive on the wall so that the boards on the back of the cabinet will be secured there.
So that
the
they won't
cabinet
cup
will
or
be,
anything, the
that's
loose
right.
boards. Okay.
It's pretty heavy, so.
Okay, this is going to be excellent.
All right, I think we're there.
Yeah. It's a
I'll-
gorgeous fit.
I'll put a couple nails to hold it in place for now, and I'll add some screws later to make sure it doesn't pull off of the wall.
Well, Ben and Debbie are really going to be pleased with this. One of the hardest things about any remodeling job is towards the end when you have to start picking the wallpaper. That's when an interior decorator really comes in handy.
Well, Roberta, what do you think about this? Ben was sort of leaning towards this last night.
Yeah, I really like the colors, but I think there are too many stripes in the design.
I think so.
Hello,
Yeah.
ladies.
Hi, Bob.
I guess
How are
you've gotten
you?
to the fun part.
Yeah,
Hi.
we have. Hi.
This is Roberta.
How
Hi,
are you?
She's
Bob.
my
Nice to meet you.
decorator. She's been
Aha.
helping with the rest of the house.
So you're getting professional help here.
Yes, I think we need it.
Let me ask you a question. How do you go about figuring out the design or the look you want for a room like this? What are the considerations?
Well, our first consideration was the wainscoting, which goes all around the room. We have wood bookcases going in on either side of the brick here, and we have a new suspended ceiling put in.
Right, I know all that, but what does that tell you?
Well, there's a lot of lines in the room already, and it's very busy.
Different materials, busyness. Okay.
Right.
So what do you opt for?
Well, our first thought was to go with a natural texture, which is a grass cloth. But when we put it up,
It gets lost,
You were
doesn't it?
bored to tears by it, right?
right,
Yeah.
not enough interest. So then we thought maybe an artificial textile, which had a little bit more life to it.
That's paper, but it looks like a cloth or a fabric.
Exactly.
I still think it's wrong.
I think it was
I do
more
too.
contemporary feeling, and Ben and I decided last night that the wainscoting really set the mood for the room. I
Right.
think it sets a very country feeling.
Absolutely.
And so Roberta
So you
and I
stopped
have
looking at these, and what else are
Yes.
you looking
Right.
at?
going
Pineapples.
on to
Pineapples.
Huh.
Very early American look. But once again, this one we felt was too small a pattern, and once again, too many stripes.
And too busy.
Right. Too
Yeah,
busy
and I can
for
see
the
where
room.
stripes would be wrong because you've got all the vertical lines of the
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
So we came up with this, which has our early American look.
There.
I think it's right there.
There you
Right
go.
here. And it adds more color to the room.
That's certainly
A
early
little
American.
bit more interesting.
And it has that stencil feeling that I originally talked about.
Yeah, and it's a family room, and it's nice to have some vivid colors like the red and the green in there.
Right, nice and cozy.
And also, Bob, Ben and I have been experimenting here with the beadboard.
What have you done to it?
Well, we've just taken a wash of 50% paint, 50% thinner, and then just put it on and washed it off with a rag. And it just seems to seal the pine. It takes the yellowness away from it.
Right, it kind of whitens it up, but it approximates that cream or parchment background you've got on the
We're
paper.
wondering how
Right.
you felt about that. Or,
Well, you've got to do something to it, and I'd rather see the knots and the grain of the wood come
Yes,
through
and-
rather than have you paint over it.
yes.
I think this is a good idea, because otherwise the pine is apt to turn kind of orange and dark, like, you know, with a couple of years age on it. What about flooring? And I mean, I guess you go for that first, and then you have to pick the flooring material, don't you?
Right.
Yes, and Ben and I have been mulling over and discussing about rugs versus vinyl goods. And I think I've won out with the vinyl goods, with the children and the animals and the spills that have to be picked
Controlled, yeah.
up. So I think we've been looking at the vinyl goods.
Well, you've got tons of samples here. Have you decided on any?
Well, Roberta and I have been mulling over them, and I think we've come down to two. I don't think we've really made a decision, but it's between these two here, Bob. I think we're leaning more towards this in the color tones. These were nice, but the brickwork was too small in them.
The pattern, you
In
mean.
one way or the other, the colors were wrong in the rest of them. So I think it was between these two, and it's going to be another day or two, I think, before we actually make the decision.
Yeah, and you'll probably have some scatter rugs on top
Yes,
of it that'll
we
make it
will.
That's
cozier.
right,
Yeah.
to bring in some color.
Roberta, what about our special windows that we have here? I guess you're aware of just what the purpose is.
Right. Well, we're going to have a light behind the window so that it will just wash the window with light. And we're going to soften just a bare window with a fabric valance and little tiers that will come down on the side. And then in the middle of the window, we're going to put a pleated shade.
What's
Which-
the purpose of that?
Well, this will let the light in from the outside, but it will block the view from in the room.
Beautiful. Well, I can hardly wait to see you get started.
Well, very soon, Bob, we hope.
Well, that's about it for today. We're running out of time. Join us again next week when we'll have our final show here, and we'll get everything completed, from furniture and flowers down to that fake fireplace. Till then, I'm Bob Vila for This Old House.
This Old House is made possible by a grant from Owens Corning Fiberglass, makers of pink fiberglass insulation, fiberglass ceiling panels, bathing fixtures, and other Owens Corning building products that put houses in the pink.